Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Bean here, and today I'm coming at you with a video where I'm just going to show you my favorite quotes from books I encounter at Barnes & Noble. This is literally me just walking into my local Barnes & Noble and picking up some of my favorite books and showing you my favorite quotes. The first quote is, "I'd hate to know everything. There'd be no history left. What would be the point?" From Under the Whispering Door by T.J. Klune. And of course, right next to it was The House in the Cerulean Sea. My quote being, "But that was the funny thing about wishes. Sometimes all it took to make them come true was a first step." Then did a little bit of wandering around Barnes, just kind of looking at the books, because that's what you do when you go to Barnes & Noble. You don't always have a book in mind, you just kind of wander. Ride the escalator to the top, and at this Barnes, we reach the middle grade/children's section. Now I know this is controversial, but I had to put in Anything's Possible If You've Got Enough Nerve from the Harry Potter series because this is one I grew up with. Putting that down and then walk over to another book in the middle grade section I am very familiar with, and that is Percy Jackson. A classic story I'm planning to reread soon. If my life is going to mean anything, I have to live it myself. Rick Riordan has some classic lines. Putting that away, get a nice little quick look around the children's section before we move on to the YA section, which is just to the side. And one of the first books that got me into YA, quoting Shadow and Bone, "There's nothing wrong with being a lizard either, unless you were born to be a hawk." I'm not sure why, but that quote has always stuck with me. There's some that are a bit more classic, but I thought this one was apropos. Also had to take a visit to Sarah J. Maas, quoting "A lovely girl gazing at the stars and the stars who gazed back" from the Throne of Glass series. Couldn't skip that one. And of course, right next to it on that table was Crescent City, with my favorite quote, "Through love all is possible," which I could not skip for any reason. Seriously, if you haven't read this book, pick it up now. Then moving over to the next table, I pick up a couple Marissa Meyer books. Great wit always comes from these quotes. First, from Renegades, "It became the strong against the weak, and as it turns out, the strong were usually jerks." The quote makes me smile just saying it. And moving on to another Marissa Meyer classic, this one is actually from Cress in the Lunar Chronicles. "Maybe there isn't such a thing as fate. Maybe it's just the opportunities we're given and what we do with them." I don't read a lot of contemporary books, so there aren't many quotes from those books, but the first one I have here is from Cemetery Boys. "If we get mugged or kidnapped, I'm gonna be pissed," and I think that encompasses some of the sarcasm in this book that I absolutely love. And then, as is normal for me, we move on to the fantasy books in YA, which I do read quite a few of. The first one I'm going to pick up is Song of Wraiths and Ruins by Roseanne A. Brown, quoting, "First, a story ends when it ends, and not a moment before," which also encompasses the feeling of this book quite well. And then we move on to a sci-fi, believe it or not. And we add in one of my favorite YA quotes, which is "Live a life worth dying for," from the Illuminate Chronicles by Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. If the camera work seems a little out of it, it's because I was trying to film without filming any random people, just kind of like out of courtesy because other people are shopping and I didn't want to interrupt. The next quote I have is, "The rebel in me loves to throw dirt in the face of decorum," from the classic The Shadows Between Us by Trisha Levenseller, which I absolutely loved. Total great love story. And picking up something kind of along those lines, I grabbed Stalking Jack the Ripper by Carrie Maniscalco, my favorite book in this series so far. Longer quote, "Roses have both petals and thorns, my dark flower. You needn't believe something weak because it appears delicate." Also, if you hear a cat meowing in the background, it's because Lana has a lot to say, especially recently. We've been gone for the holiday, and she's just got a lot to tell us right now. So I'm going to be moving on now from the YA to the adult books, and I've got some new favorites there. I ended up wandering into the science fiction section of the store, and while they didn't have the first book I was looking for or the second one, I ended up finding The Martian by Andy Weir, and the quote from that one is, "Everything went great up to the explosion. If you want more great quotes, just read this book. I'm serious. It's amazing." I then did end up wandering more to the fantasy section, and I picked up The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. Quote, this one is, "I'm not sleeping alongside you in some temple dedicated to fish orgies." Gotta love the sarcasm and the sass in this book. I was then very pleased to see right close The Invisible Library by Genevieve Cogman. I'm going to quote, "We don't want to be stuck on the train with nothing to read." That is from the fourth book in the series, I believe, but I enjoyed the series nonetheless. Moving on, I then grabbed some J. Kristoff books, the first being Nevernight, and I grabbed an obscure quote, "When in doubt, it's best to be polite when dealing with lunatics." It seemed fitting. And of course, then Empire of the Vampire, very serious and very dark book, but I loved this quote, "Your past is stone, but your future is clay." Another fitting one for the holiday season, I think. And I then moved on to some other books. There's so many here, but the next one I picked up was The Invisible Life of Addy Larue. And the quote that I chose was, "Stories are a way to preserve one's self." And going along with the story idea, I then picked up A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. The quote I chose was, "I'd rather die in an adventure than live standing still." I believe I actually have that one on a bag somewhere, on a tote bag. Anyways, that's not the point. Moving on, I went into some of the books that I recommend quite a bit. There's only two left. The first one being The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. And the quote I chose is right at the beginning of the book, and it's, "You have to be a bit of a liar to tell a story the right way." And as an author, I can completely sympathize and empathize with this quote because it is completely correct. And the last book quote pairing that I'm going to leave you with is from The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter, and the quote being, "The days without difficulty are the days you did not improve." I felt this was a good way to end my sort of mashup video here. All right, and that's all I got for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed. Now is the perfect time to like and subscribe. We post Tuesday, Thursday, and sometimes Sunday. Until next time, guys, stay safe, stay healthy, keep reading. Bye!